let's see, what day is it today? August 27, 2016. And we will be continuing on our study about midnight, right? Previously we studied the hand of God, the finger of God, right? The finger of God. And then we studied that judgment is being written at the time at midnight. And there's what else going to happen at midnight? What else happens at midnight that happened to Jesus? What happened to Jesus? He was betrayed, right? And he was arrested. And what was the three things that he was accused of? Jill, what were the three things? What were the three things? All right. Profanation, blasphemy, and sedition. Right. All right. Sedition. So if that happened to Jesus, and Jesus is our example and everything, what do you think is going to happen to us? It's going to happen to us also. And it's going to happen to us at the midnight cry. At midnight and midnight cry. So, when is midnight? You know, remember that, so we'll put this slide up. All right. Midnight for the time of Jesus and his disciples was when who stood up from the table? Who stood up from the table? Judas. Right. Judas stood up from the table, and that was midnight. What about the time of the 10 plagues in Egypt? When was midnight? When was midnight?
10 plagues.
At the time, the 10 plagues.
Midnight was on the third.
It was the third one. Why? Because, right, because what? Why was it the third one?
Because the finger of God,
They cannot duplicate the finger of, they said, oh, it's the finger of God. So the third plague is at the midnight, right? Yeah, it was lice. Right, yeah. Okay. So for us now, when is midnight? That's the biggest question, right? We need to know when midnight is. But we realize that midnight for us already is shown during the time of the Millerites, right? Because the Millerites understood that they were living at the time of the 10 virgins, right? So they were passing through midnight also. Their experience of the 10 virgin parables were the experience of the Adventists. And that experience is going to be repeated in our time. So to know when midnight is in our time, we need to study the Millerites' history. So, and the premier verse of the Millerites and for Seventh-day Adventism is that what? Daniel 8:14. And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Right. They believed and preached the understanding of the 2,300 days that Jesus would get on the cloud and he would cleanse the sanctuary. And they understood that the sanctuary is what? The earth. Right. So meaning, they said, Jesus is going to come down and cleanse this earth. At the end of 2,300 days. And how did they figure out the beginning of the 2,300 days? How did they figure it out? No. What's the beginning of the 2,300 days? 457, right. How did they figure out 457? Based on which time prophecy? It's in Daniel. It's in Daniel 9. The 70 weeks, right? Yeah, the 70 weeks. right? From the time of the going forth of the commandment, right? For them to leave Babylon, right? Until okay, you remember that? Oh yeah, you should remember that, right? Okay, how are you going to defend it? Because you know it. Well, we got to know it. All right. Okay, so they said, okay, it's going to be 2,300 years after the Israelites left from Babylon. So they calculated 457 BC. You add 2,300 years. What year did they come up with? 1843. Now, what is the big problem that you see there? Joe, what's the problem that you see there? If you're trying to, okay, 457 BC, add 2,300 years, and then you're going to come up to 2,300 years, what will be the problem of finding that end date?
The spring or the spring. Oh.
Well, that's a problem.
Zero?
They were having trouble getting zero.
That's a year zero is a problem. Yeah, we always thought it was a year zero problem, but it's actually not a year zero problem.
In the fall or the spring?
Okay. What calendar were the Millerites using?
Gregorian.
The calendar that we use now.
That we use
What kind of calendar is that?
Gregorian.
Hebrew.
Gregorian calendar, right?
But they were using something else.
The Hebrew.
So, was that the calendar that Daniel used in the Babylonian times?
No.
No. So is that a problem?
Yes.
It's a huge problem.
So they use Hebrew.
Huge problem. So what do you have to use? Yeah, well, obviously. But even if you use Hebrew problem, how do you synchronize it with the Gregorian calendar, right?
Yeah.
So first thing, right away, there's going to be a problem because you can't say, well, I was born in the month of the Javanese year. That's actually a Javanese calendar.
The Japanese.
Yeah, Javanese, Indonesian calendar. I couldn't believe it. I looked it up. Oh, there is? Yeah. I was born in this Javanese calendar of whatever. So how old am I? Well, you got to know how to connect one calendar with another calendar, right? Okay. All right. So that's what we're going to study today. All right. So they were using the Gregorian calendar.
And it's based on the equinox.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, we know that, yeah, because that calendar has been in use since when? I'll give you a hint.
Gregory, or King Gregory.
From what? 1582, right? What calendar did this take over? The Julian calendar.
No, Julius is
So what we're using is the Gregorian calendar, and it took over the Julian calendar. Okay. What calendar did the Julian calendar take over? The Roman. Julius Caesar, he's pagan, right? Yeah. But in those days, he had to revise the calendar from the old ancient Roman calendar to the Julian calendar, and then it got changed to the Gregorian calendar, and we still use the Gregorian calendar until this day. Okay, we're going to study this. I'm going to go really slow because you're going to be able to have to defend this. All right, I'm going to go really slow. I'm going to ask questions.
What was the calendar before the Roman?
Babylonian calendar.
Oh, Babylonian.
There's a Babylonian calendar.
How about in Israel time?
Was that
Oh, it's a
calendar?
biblical. They based on biblical calendar.
Yeah, during Israel time, they were using a Jewish calendar, right? But there's different Jewish calendars, right? There's different Jewish. You got to know which calendar they were using, all right?
Using the Karaite or the Rabbinic.
Yeah, yeah. We've studied this before, but we're going to review this. For a lot of people that are watching this, has asked me, why don't you go over this? Because we don't know this stuff, right? How are we going to defend our faith if we don't even know this stuff, right? So what was the motivation for the change from the Roman calendar to the Julian calendar. We got to know this first stuff. I'm going to go real slow because these things is very important. All right, the Roman calendar had 12 months of 355 days. Okay, so how many days is it short by?
365.
If it's 355, 10 days. So what happens if your calendar is short by 10 days? What happens to your festivals? What happened year after year? What will happen to your calendar?
You're talking about
Every year it'll be early. So if you're celebrating Christmas, pretty soon Christmas will be in the middle of June. Right? Well, that's not good. Right? Because they had their calendar was 12 months and 355 days. So it was short 10 days every solar cycle. So every time the earth moved around the sun, they were short 10 days, right? Right? Every time, yeah? Right? Make sense? All right. So what did they have to do?
They have to make up another.
They had to add months.
Add months to it. Like
So-
their 10th month or something.
So if they're short by 10 days, how many every third year they have to add 30 days, right? For them to have to make it up, right? Does it make sense? Because so where do they add those 30 days or those?
every 4
Every 3
years.
years.
Yeah, every 3 years, right?
But after
But
that-
where in the calendar they put it?
After the 12th month.
In the middle somewhere, or is it, this is why they call it an intercalary month. What does inter mean? In between. What does calary mean? Calendar. So in between the calendars. So the end of the year and the beginning of the year, they will put a what? A month. So they will add a 13th month.
13th month.
Right. Every how many years? Every 3 years, right?
No, the Roman calendar had 10 months with 365 days. The Julian calendar had 12 months. And the Roman calendar has 10 months with 304 days. The Julian calendar has 12 months with 365 days. And they have to add 1 month.
Now the Roman, there's multiple Roman calendars. There's so many different kinds of Roman calendars. But eventually the one that they had was the 12 months and 355 days. But the issue is that when they added the months every 3 years, who decides when they add the months? The emperor.
Yeah,
Emperor.
Julius.
So the emperor says, well, I'm the emperor. I can add, I'll add this month. Maybe I'll add it this year, and then next year, he arbitrarily decides. Now, how does he decide when to add those 13 months? When it's convenient for him. If he wants to reign longer, what did he do? He adds the months.
Adds a month.
When his rival is trying to usurp the throne, what did he do? He doesn't add the month. So-
it doesn't have to be on every third year, or
Yeah, he'll just add it whenever he wants to,
whenever.
and he adds more years and this and that depending on his mood. So the calendar depends on the emperors. This is terrible
That's terrible.
because nobody will know, when is the festivals,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So what did Julius Caesar do? He decided. Now Julius Caesar is pagan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Julius Caesar, he decides that, okay, we're not going to go on the whim of the emperor. What we're going to do is we're going to base it on the sun. All right? We are going to base on the sun. And it's going to have to do with the cycle around the sun. So the Julian calendar has 12 years 12 months
12 months.
and 300.
12 months.
Okay, it has 12 months. I did write this down somewhere, but I can't find it right now. But anyway, it has 12 months and 365 days, right? The problem is that with that Julian calendar, it was too long by 11 minutes.
Oh, there's an extra.
11 minutes, right?
Uh-huh.
So what happens if you add 11 minutes every over a solar cycle? Then it'll go backwards, it starts going. So what did they have to do? they had to add 1 day every 120 years to make it go back, right? So the Julian calendar was obviously not perfect, but they have to do it by trial and error, kind of thing like that. They wait and wait and wait. Oh, yeah, we're too far,
20 years.
right? So they have to add a year.
Leap year.
A leap year is when they add another month. But even after the end of all that, we're still ahead. After 128 years, they look at all the moons and the stars, and hey, we're ahead. We're not where we're supposed to be. We're ahead. Okay, so that is why the Gregorian calendar was made. All right. The issue is that what happened in the Council of Nicaea. The Council of Nicaea was when they decided that they needed to determine when the Easter is. So because the Jews always celebrated Passover. When is Passover for the Jews? The 14th day of the first month, right? For the Jews, right? 14th day of the first month. When is Easter? The day after it, right? Is the Sunday. It's a Sunday. For them, it's a Sunday. But is Passover always on a Saturday?
No.
No. The Passover can happen any old day,
Yeah.
any day of the week, right? It can happen any day of the week. So, does the Catholics like it if Easter is on a Tuesday?
No.
No. We can't have Easter on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
We have to have it on a what? Sunday. So what did the Council of Nicaea determine? They changed that. Okay, we're going to make it that the Easter is the first Sunday after the vernal equinox. All right. So they said that. Okay. So
Because right now, equinox is March.
What is vernal equinox?
okay, we'll get to that. All right. So what they say. So the church decided vernal is spring.
Yes.
It's the Latin word for spring.
Spring, yeah.
Autumnal, which is Latin for autumn. So there's a vernal equinox, which is spring equinox. And there's autumnal equinox, which is autumn equinox. All right. The church in 321, which is the Council of Nicaea, says that we can't have Easter on a Tuesday. We have to have Easter on a Sunday, right? And it has to be the Sunday after the what? The spring equinox. The problem is that they were at the Julian calendar. What was 321 AD? See, this is 1582. Easter was still moving ahead. It was still drifting. Remember, 1 day every 128 years. It's still moving, right? Pretty soon, it's no longer in the middle in the beginning of in spring,
Yeah.
right? When they came down to 1582, it's off. Spring, So what did they do? They made up the Gregorian calendar. And how did they look at how they changed in 1582? What did they do? They took out 11 days. They took out 11 days. All right. Look at this very carefully.
So there
Did they change the day of the week?
No, it was not changed.
Look at this. Thursday,
The number.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Did the days of the week change?
No.
No. What did they do? They just took out 11 days because it had drifted. Easter has drifted by 11 days already. So they said, we got to get... So what was their motivation? Easter. Right?
They want that
They want Easter right,
Sunday.
yeah, very close to the spring equinox.
Spring equinox.
Yeah, it has to be, and it has to be on a Sunday, right? The motivation is Easter. Was the motivation of the Gregorian calendar to change the dates of the week? No. The motivation is to change Easter to make sure that Easter is always on a certain day.
It's not a scientific endeavor.
Well, it's not scientific at all. There's nothing scientific about that. It's Easter. It's for Easter.
Pagan.
It's religious.
Right. And what kind of wisdom is that? That's the church wisdom. Right? The Julian calendar, well, that's pagan wisdom. The Gregorian calendar, that's church wisdom. Okay. So when you look at the Jewish calendar, what was the reason they had to figure out the first day, the 14th day of the month? What was the reason why they had to do that? Because they had to know,
Yeah, the feasts.
yeah, they had to know when the feasts are,
When the feasts are.
right? So they had to know when the Passover is, right? So to understand the calendar is to be able to understand when the feasts are, which is Passover, right? So the Jewish calendar is used to determine the feasts and the seasons for planting and all that, right? Right. Is it to understand when the Sabbath is?
No.
Obviously not.
It's fixed, always.
Yeah, it has been constant
Yeah. See, that's
from the beginning.
yeah, that's what we believe, right?
Right.
But that's not what some people believe.
Yes. Yes.
That's true. That's not what some people believe. Okay. All right. Here's from history.com. In 1582, it was off by 11 minutes every 11 minutes every 128 years, and pretty soon it was off by 11 days.
Oh my goodness.
All right. So they had to recalculate it. But to recalculate the day of the month, they don't have to recalculate the
Days.
weeks,
Days of the week.
the days of the weeks. So if you went to sleep on a Thursday night and you woke up the following morning, did you suddenly wake up on a Tuesday? No, you still woke up on a Friday.
But a different.
You still woke up on the sixth day. So here my question is this. Does the Gregorian calendar affect the day of the Sabbath?
No.
No. So, some people make a blank statement. We cannot follow the Gregorian calendar because it is what? It is church wisdom, right? Is that correct? Is the Gregorian calendar church wisdom?
It is. It's correct.
But is it?
Wisdom.
The church wisdom changing the days, but not the dates, but not the day.
The day, right? Now, is it wrong to follow the Gregorian calendar, though?
That's all we're following.
Doesn't matter because we
The dates.
do the 7th day.
Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you follow the 7 cycles, 7-day cycle, right? That one. Okay. Here's another way of thinking about it. What happens at the Sunday law? At the Sunday law, a church is going to force you to worship on the Gregorian Sunday, correct? Right? And the reason why it's forcing you to worship on the Gregorian calendar is so that you don't worship on the 7th-day Sabbath. Right. What if that Sunday is actually changed already? What if it's already changed already?
What do you mean?
Changing what?
Then they
If-
can
if-
really impose it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, this is, come to think of it, this is what Satan is doing. Satan always, if they change the week,
And they start
the
on-
Gregorian
What-
changed
what-
a
what
weekday.
changed?
I know, it is not changed,
It's not changed.
but they don't want to change it,
Yeah. Why should they?
right? Because there is a reason why. Now, Satan says,
the 7th days, the Sundays, is what they say.
right, when this is the reason why this is the understanding of why it is important to still keep the Gregorian calendar. Now, when the Father and the Son went into a council and decided to make Earth, he did not include
Lucifer.
Lucifer there, right?
Right.
And he Jesus made
The earth.
the earth in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh day, right? On the seventh day, which is his Sabbath,
Yeah.
because he is the Lord of the Sabbath. And Satan doesn't like it, because he was left out of that council. So he says, no, I want another date. So what did he make? He created another day for the people to worship on, and they worship Ra, Shamash, Apollo, and all that. Who are they worshiping? The sun gods, right? Because the sun gods are worshipped on what day? A Sunday, right? They had to make a Sunday. So he has to make a counterfeit day against this,
Worship.
the day of the day of Jesus rest, right? So when Jesus was on earth and Jesus died and rested on his day that he created, right? Because he's the one that created
Right.
the Sabbath, right? So when he died, what day did he rest on?
And the seventh.
On the day that he created,
Right.
right?
It has never changed.
Because that way we know from the day of creation until that day he died, did that cycle change? No, because Jesus died on the day that he created was to be holy, and the day that he rested, right? So we know for sure it never changed.
Right.
And on what calendar was that on? When he died, what calendar was being used when Jesus died?
It was only Roman.
Or
No,
Julian.
it was
Roman
Julian.
or Julian?
It's Julian calendar.
Julian. Oh, yeah, because Julius
It's the
Caesar
Julian
was there.
calendar.
Yeah.
Was it the Julian calendar when Jesus died?
Yeah, because Julius Caesar was
Julius Caesar was before,
before he died.
yeah, right?
Was Tiberius when that?
Yeah, it was. What's the name of the Caesar when it's
Tiberius.
Tiberius Caesar,
The
right?
one who had the-
So Jesus died on the Julian calendar,
Right.
right? So from the time of Jesus until now, has the weekly cycle changed? No, look at that. It's still the
Still
same,
the same.
right? So the Sunday that was changed by Constantine on 321 is used by Satan specifically. I want that day to be in direct opposition of the seventh day, right? And that day is special to me. It has to be the same day that has to be in opposition of the seventh day. That's why when the Sunday law comes in our time, it has to come on the first day of the Gregorian calendar, right?
So you think they won't change the days, like starting on Monday instead of Sunday?
No, they won't change the cycle.
Change, yeah.
won't?
They change the cycle
Can't
Of
change.
course.
because
Because
Kind
they
of obvious.
want-
I mean,
that's obvious.
That's
that's
obvious.
kind of like common knowledge.
Yeah.
That's common knowledge, but people don't think about it
They're just going to make a decree.
because Satan doesn't want it changed.
He wants his own day.
Right? That's his day.
Well, Sunday is Sunday. Like, it's not like...
Right? That's why the Sunday is always his day. Right? It's always his day. No matter what calendar you use, that cycle of 7 days will not change.
Can't
So
change.
it will have...
It always. All right.
So if it happens on the Gregorian calendar, you know that the cycle hasn't changed.
Yeah.
That's your proof.
No, it's not the proof.
I mean, that's evidence.
No, it's the evidence that it has to still be the same.
Yeah.
So that way, when he says you're gonna worship on a Sunday, that's the same Sunday that
That has
from the time of Nimrod,
Yeah.
that he made it, from the time of Constantine, from the time of Justinian, when every Sunday law has been made, is the same Sunday, because that's the same day that he has made affront to the Sabbath, right?
You can only know that when Sunday law happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be Sunday.
It's gonna be Sunday.
Everyone-
It's not gonna be another
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, everyone lives by faith that the cycle is the same. But then you know that it's written in record that Sunday is fulfillment of prophecy, which says day.
Yeah. How do you
Everyone
know
just lives by, all Sabbath keepers have to live by faith that
No.
the Sabbath
hasn't been changed?
it hasn't changed because they don't know.
No, I know why.
But
There's a proof.
Yeah, there is.
Because Jesus did
Died.
he rested on the same day that he created on creation. Would he have rested on a different day?
Jesus died, yeah, Jesus is the proof.
Well, he on the Julian calendar, he died on the.
Yeah.
Still on the Julian calendar, it doesn't matter. It's still on a he still died on a Friday and he rested on a Sabbath, right?
Yeah, that's it.
But that means it's never changed,
Yeah.
right? It's never changed, right? That's some people don't think that that's a big deal, but it's really a big deal.
Yeah.
Satan is not going to want it changed. So the Gregorian calendar, it is church wisdom, but it is not.
Yeah, and talking about the lunar Sabbath, people when Sunday law comes, are they gonna know which is the
This is
Sunday?
gonna exactly. All right.
Yeah.
So this is what happens. What happens if your Sabbath happens to fall? Well, it has to, according to some beliefs, it's gonna fall on the 15th, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and the 1st. Yeah, it always has to fall on those dates after the moon.
After
So it can happen on any day of the week. What happens at the Sunday law? If your 15th day happens to fall on the Sunday of the Gregorian calendar, you say, you know what? I'm worshiping on the 15th. This is not my Sunday,
yeah.
but I'm actually. It says, is America going to enforce? He says, we don't care what day as long if you're worshiping on this day.
Really worshiping.
Are they going to receive the seal of God, or are they going to receive the mark of the beast? It's going to be a problem. Because the 15th, the 22nd, and the 28th, the 29th of the lunar month, can it fall on a Sunday? Absolutely. So on the Sunday law, are you potentially going to be worshiping on a Sunday? Oh boy. It gets to be a problem.
So I guess if they change the calendar to start on Monday, it will be very obvious.
It really doesn't matter if they change that it's going to start on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, as long as Wednesday is still Wednesday. It really doesn't matter, right? Because for us, if they change it and they want to worship on any other day, for us, as long as the earth turns 7 times, we worship. Turns another 7 times, we worship, right? It doesn't matter what the sun is or the moon is or anything. The earth turn on its axis 7 times, you worship, right? That's the same thing. It doesn't really matter. Okay. All right. So, what about, we know now a little bit about the Gregorian calendar, because we have to sync it with what?
Hebrew.
The Hebrew calendar. So, we got to understand the Hebrew calendar now. Okay. Here's the Hebrew calendar. We did this before.
Yeah.
All right, remember this? All right. When is Passover? Passover is always
The 14th day.
the 14th day of the first month. Why is that? Because that's the typical day for when Jesus is going to die. So this calendar is the calendar of 31 AD when Jesus died. All right? Because the first day of the first month is on a Sunday. Jesus died on a Friday, right? He died on the 6th day. The 14th day, that's Passover, right? And then he rested on the 15th day, right? Right. And what is this on the yellow here? 15th through the 21st. What feast is that?
Unleavened bread.
Feast of the unleavened bread. Now, because what were they actually celebrating? The unleavened bread. Why did they keep the unleavened bread? Because when they came out of Egypt, did they have time to let the bread rise?
Oh, no, they didn't.
What did they have to do? They have to come out quick.
Yeah, they have to leave right away.
And on what day did they leave? The day after
Passover.
the day Passover, which is on the 15th. All right.
So at midnight.
Yeah. They left on the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
15th, at the on the day of unleavened bread, which is on the 15th, right? Okay. What about the day of Pentecost? It's kind of green here. The day of the Pentecost is the morrow after 7 Sabbaths. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The morrow after 7 Sabbaths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
26.
So 50 days, isn't it?
Yeah. Where am I off here? Oh, here I should be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This should be 29th. Tomorrow after it's here is on the 15th. Okay, here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Should be the 12th.
7.
Oh.
All right. So it's here.
So tama.
1, 22 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, so
So the morrow after the 7th Sabbath is the Pentecost, which is Feast of Weeks, 7 weeks. All right. And then the blowing of trumpets is the in Tishri one, which is in October. All right. So these are the spring festivals, and these are the fall festivals. All right. The blowing of trumpets, and then the Day of Atonement is the 10th day of the 7th month. And then the Feast of Tabernacles is the 15th day of the 7th month. So from here to here is exactly 6 months. From the 15th day of the 7th month to the 14th day of the 1st month is exactly 6 months. All right. So here are the festivals. All right. Okay.
and that's 31 AD calendar.
This is 31 AD. This is when Jesus died. Because when Jesus died, he was crucified here, and he rested here. Okay.
By God's providence, when he died, it's fall on Friday.
That's what
Because could be
because it's
No, it's by prophecy. It's prophecy.
Yeah.
It's already prophesied that he is going to die on the 14th,
Yeah.
on Passover.
because otherwise Passover can fall on Monday, Tuesday, right?
Right. He has to die on that day. It's already prophesied already. All right. Okay, here we go. Now we got to know Sabbath and Sabbatons. Shabbat and Shabbatons. All right? Because in the Bible, when you read Sabbath, it is translated either Shabbat or Shabbaton. What's the difference between Shabbat or Sabbaton? Do you remember? Jill, you remember? You remember what?
There was like a high day and
Sabbath is the
rest.
Shabbat or Shabbaton. That's the one with the festival.
Right. Shabbat is the 7th day of the 7th day.
Doesn't happen as frequently as
Right.
regular Sabbaths, but they're all still Sabbath.
Right. Because when they translate in the English language, they just say Sabbath. They did not make a distinction between Shabbat and Shabbaton. All right.
For us, we don't need to celebrate a Shabbaton because that's already passed.
Yeah, but those who celebrate the feasts still keep the Shabbatons, right? Right? Yeah, we understand that it's very important. We have to know it all. But look at this, Exodus 16 verse 23. And he said unto them, this is when they came out of Egypt and they were to gather manna, right? And he said unto them, this is Moses saying to the children of Israel, this is that which the Lord has said, tomorrow is the rest, which is Shabbaton. The rest is Shabbaton. Of the Holy Sabbath is the rest day of the Holy Sabbath, which is Shabbat. Unto the Lord, bake that which ye baked today, and see that ye will cease, and that which remaineth overlay up for you to be kept until the morning. So on the Shabbaton of Friday, so you know what? Friday is a Shabbaton. Friday is a special day because it's a Preparation day. Right. It's a Shabbaton. And what do? You have to double up on Friday. Right? On the 6th day, you have to double up on your food because you cannot keep it. So can you collect food on a Shabbaton? Yeah. On a Friday. You can collect food. Can you pick up sticks to gather, to make a fire?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. But can you do it on a Shabbat? No, you can't do it. All right. Okay, so there's the difference. Which is holier, a Shabbat or a Shabbaton?
Shabbat.
Oh, yeah, obviously. The Shabbats are these, the 7th day. There's the 7th day, the 7th days. Here, these are Shabbats. All right? Those are holy. And the Fridays, they're Shabbatons. But what are Shabbatons also? Passovers. The feast days are Shabbatons. All right? These feast days are Shabbatons. Here. What if the Shabbaton happened to fall on a Shabbat?
It's the high day.
Then it's called a high day. Right? When was it a high day? When Jesus died
Jesus
and he rested. And that was a high day. Why is it a high day? Because this is the Shabbaton of the unleavened bread, and that happens to fall on a Shabbat. And that's why it's called a Megas. Right? Remember Megas, right?
Intersect Shabbat and Shabbaton.
When it happens to fall on a Shabbaton, happens to fall on a Shabbat.
Shabbaton was Friday.
Well, Fridays, but this also is a Shabbaton. The 15th day of the month of Abib is also a feast day.
What feast was it?
It's the feast of unleavened bread. That's if happens to fall on the 31 AD, it happens to fall on a Sabbath. So that's a high day. Now, what happens on a high day? You can't do anything. Can you bury a dead person on a Shabbat? No, you can't bury anybody on a Shabbat. Oh, wow.
That's why they have to bury him.
Do we
Yeah.
bury people on a Shabbat?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
James 1.
Yeah.
I thought they only do memorials.
Yeah, they do memorials. What was memorials?
I
Yeah.
think all of this, the Shabbat, the word was when they had it, the Bible was in Greek. Because that's the word that really, because if you really look at the Jewish, the Sabbath is a Sabbath. Regardless of what is a Sabbath. But when they came in with the Hebrew and the Greek and it was translated, that's when they got all these words.
No, but Shabbaton is different. This Shabbaton is from Exodus. This is a Hebrew language. This is not a Greek. This is a Hebrew.
Okay.
This is Shabbaton is from Exodus. It's from the Torah.
Okay.
Shabbaton is from Torah. This is Exodus, right? Now it's in Colossians, which is written in Aramaic, right? Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holiday. Holiday is a festival of a feast. Or on a new moon, or the festival of a new moon. Is there a festival on new moons? Right. When there's a new moon here, whatever new moon it is, there is a festival of the new moon. Or on the Sabbath. What Sabbath is that? Shabbaton. You are not to judge on the Shabbatons. So, on these Shabbatons are different from Sabbath, right?
But it can fall on Shabbat.
All right. Okay. So, let's say, remember Colossians 2 verse 14? Blotting out the handwriting of the ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took it out of the way, nailing it to the cross. Right. So what was the ordinances that was nailed to the cross? Was it the meat and drink offerings? Was it the sacrificial the sacrificial offering? Was it the festivals? Now the feasts. The feast consists of two different things, right? Because on the feast, you have to go to Jerusalem to hold how many feasts? 3 feasts. 3 of those feasts, you have to be in Jerusalem, right? and you have to have a certain type of sacrifice, right? And what else? The law of Moses. Those are all the ordinances. So people will start to say, okay, are all those ordinances nailed on the cross? Or is it some of them, or one of them, or which one of them? Because some people will make a distinction. You know what? We don't have to keep the certain feasts, but, you know, we have to keep some of them. We have to keep the day, but then we don't have to go to Jerusalem. Right? So which one do you pick and choose? Can you pick and choose, or all of them are? It gets to be a problem when you start picking and choosing. Yeah. Because you can't really, how are you going to pick and choose? Who gives you the right that to say, I need to keep the day, but I don't have to go to Jerusalem? Oh boy. So does it mean that the feasts are unimportant?
It is important.
It is important. But it is important. You know, after studying all of this, I really understand that it is important spiritually. It is very important spiritually, right? Spiritually is so important. Okay. All right. Hey, I like that animation. Okay. So we did this. We understand so we need to figure out that the first day, so to be able to connect the Gregorian and the Hebrew calendar, we have to know when the first day is, right? Because from the first day, then you calculate the 14th day, and when is the 10th day of the 7th month, right? But you have to know when the first day is, right? When you know when the first day is, and you know it when that first day is in the Gregorian calendar, then you can synchronize the calendars, correct? Make sense? Okay. All right. Which calendar are you going to use, though? See, that's the problem here. How many? We did the Gregorian calendar. Gregorian calendar has 12 months, and the days is between 28 and 31 days, 365 days a year, correct? And when does it start? In the winter. Right. Now, this is prophetic time and time of Noah. The earth was not tilted after by the flood. It was not tilted by the flood. Before the flood, it was 12 months, 30 days, and 360 years. And how can you prove it? It's in Genesis 7 and Genesis 8. Because 150 days is 5 months for Noah. But after Noah, then they found out, you know what? It's off. Because the earth is tilted. And because of that, the cycles of the earth rotation around the sun and the rotation of the moon around the earth, it doesn't synchronize now. It's out of sync. All right. So there's 3 types of Hebrew calendars, right? Civil Hebrew is for the government. For the government, it starts in autumn, all right? And there's also what is called Rabbinical. Rabbinical starts on spring equinox. And there's also what is called Karaite. Karaite starts at the barley harvest. All right? Which one was the Jews keeping at the time of the Millerites? So well, they keep the Gregorian calendar. So when William Miller says, you know what, Joshua Himes and William Miller, they said we need to synchronize these calendars. How do we synchronize with the Jewish calendar? They asked the Jews, okay, how do you calculate your first day of your first month? This is not what they said, but from the understandings, they had to ask, well, we keep our first day, first month based on the Rabbinical calendar, which starts in the spring equinox, right? So William Miller used that spring equinox for the start of the Jewish calendar. And then he calculated
The 2300.
the end of the 2300 days. All right? Because that's what the Jews were keeping at that time. All right? But is that right?
No.
Ah, that's right. That's the thing. Was that right? So the thing is that we need to know which is the right calendar, whether it's rabbinical, and the rabbinical calendar is used by the Jews even until now, because they base the first day of the first month on the spring equinox. All right? Okay, what is a equinox?
Tilt.
Well, it's not a tilt. What is equinox?
Equal, then they.
It's the equal.
When the sun-
When the length of the day is approximately equal to the length of the night. All right, that's when it's got to be here. It's here, right? Because here it's in the December and in I guess at the time of the solstice. I can December and when? I'll be July, I guess. The sun is very low on the horizon in the summer and low in the winter. So that's the solstice. The lowest it is near the horizon is in December. And so that's the solstice. So the day is very short and the night is long in December, right? That's the solstice. But and the equinox is when it's approximately equal. All right. So that's called equinox. And it happens 2 times a year. In March and in September. Right? March and September. Around March 21.
Yeah, you got the spring and you got the fall.
Okay, there's 2 kinds of equinox though. I'm getting a little bit, this gets very complicated.
Yeah.
Because it's only approximate. Now, who decides when the equinox is? When you look at the sun, which is kind of like, well, it looks like it's approximately equal, and that the time of the day. Who actually?
NASA.
No, it's the church. The church said it's March 21.
Oh.
It's March 21
So it's
on the Gregorian calendar. Yeah,
They decide.
that's called the ecclesiastical equinox. The church decides that it's on March 21. But when is the true equinox? The true equinox is when the equator, when you're at the true equinox, the equator is not tilted this way. You see, this is the sun, and the equator is not like this.
It should be straight.
It should be straight. When the equator is straight pointing at the sun, that's the true equinox. How would you know the equatorial equinox? How would you know that?
The sun is really straight.
From an app that you have on the internet looking at the NASA site. That's the true site.
Yeah.
That's the true equinox. And that changes. Sometimes it's March 20, sometimes it's March 21. That's the true equinox. Okay, let's say it's after Sunday law and there's no more internet. How are you going to find out it's the equinox?
Just follow what they say.
You're supposed to read this.
That's why you can base it on. That's why you can base it on equinoxes, right?
All right? After the Sunday law, when you're running to the mountains at the time of the 7 plagues, will there be internet?
No.
Will there be any apps that you can open up to find out when is the real equinox? Or are you going to be really smart that you can know exactly based on looking at the stars and the moon? Big problem.
So, the ecclesiastical equinox, who uses that? Like,
Everybody.
no, I know, but like, they're feast keepers, like.
Yeah, they use it.
But how about the equatorial? Is that, what is
Scientific.
That's the scientific. I don't know what they use. But whatever it is, it's wrong.
I know
it is wrong. But you just
It's
prove that it's
wrong.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a problem.
They have
Wait,
Because which equinox are you gonna use? The equatorial equinox? When the what is right? When the equator is exactly pointing at the sun, that's the true equatorial equinox.
Horizontal, yeah.
And who knows that? Only from NASA will know that.
So not with the naked eyes. You can.
Ah, no, absolutely not.
the peacekeepers have to plant barley.
Oh boy. Yeah.
But in Israel,
All right.
Do
It's
the peacekeepers use ecclesiastical?
yeah. They use ecclesiastical. I think they sometimes use equatorial because they just look at the NASA site. They just have an app.
Most of.
They just look at an app.
Yeah.
That's what they do there.
Paul was his-
They look at
You
the.
just look at you just use it.
They use NASA.
Sunday after like the first moon or something. The week
Right.
after- the
First,
week after the-
first you have to know when the
What
equinox
What
is.
is that?
So first you have to know when the equinox is.
Yeah, I thought the equinox. It's like when the full moon and then the week after that.
Yeah, the equinox is the new moon
The new moon.
after the equinox is the first day of the first month. Right? You get that?
new moon after
After the equinox.
The new moon after the spring equinox is the first day of the first month.
The new moon is always.
Do you get that?
You know, when they equal, the duration.
Though how do you know when the equinox is?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, you need an app.
Yeah.
You need an app.
But if you don't have an app,
The thing is, it's not prevalent for us specifically. Like, Americans, you know,
Well, it's not prevalent for us at all.
that's what I'm saying.
No, because we don't.
You need an app.
We just.
You're gonna be in
look at
problem.
the sky. Oh,
Oh,
there's
wait.
the new moon.
And then the first new moon after the equinox is that's the first day of the.
First month.
Isn't that the first day? 15th day of the first month.
No, that's the first day of the first month. Then from there, then you count 14 days. Then that's
So
Passover.
that's the first day of the first month is the new moon after the spring equinox.
So the full moon is 14 days after a new moon. A new moon is when it's crescent. So you go outside and look at the new moon. It's crescent,
What
right?
if a cloud is walking?
The problem is that exactly the same in Australia as it is in here?
No.
It's off.
Because where you are,
That-
it's
Where is
equated on the
relevant.
equator, you know.
It's different in Australia than in
So,
Florida.
In Florida, that's right.
So your new moon in Florida is different than the one in Australia.
Yeah.
So people will go out there and say, "Oh, you know what? This is the first day. Let's count from today is Sabbath, and then 7 days from now it's, in Australia it's going to be different."
So the ecclesiastical equinox that's always March 21.
No, it's not. Ecclesiastical. Yes. Yeah.
It's March 21.
March 21. They decide it's March 21.
All equinoxes are all on
So-
March.
Is it confusing?
Yeah. No, but it's always
It's
March and
confusing.
September.
That's
But
relative.
the date is not, the same.
It's a big problem.
So
All right.
the church decides what day it is every year, or.
Is that like what the Roman Catholics believe is Easter Sunday? So Easter Sunday is always on March
Yeah,
21?
yeah.
No.
Easter
March 21 is the equinox.
no matter what year.
And then the first Sunday,
After the
Easter.
So that's always the 28th.
no, not
No,
really.
not even.
The equinox can happen any old day of the week.
Oh, the first Sunday after the. Okay, so
It
But
could,
it's
if it
always
happens on a
March.
Saturday, it's tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. Okay. Yeah,
If it happens on a Thursday, it'll be 4 days from there.
Okay.
But it's always on
But it's always on
March.
March 21.
It's always
It's not-
March
not-
and
yeah,
September.
yeah.
Equinox
sometimes-
is always March 21 according to the.
Ecclesiastical equinox, all right. But some people will use the ecclesiastical. Some people will use equatorial equinox. You need an app for that. All right.
But it's always in March and
But it's always
September.
the equatorial equinox is always 19, 20, or 21.
It's 1920 it's 20 or 21, I think.
There's sometimes 19. But
Sometimes
mostly
19,
20,
yeah.
21.
Yeah.
God doesn't want us
Mostly
to be
20 or
confused.
21. Mhm.
Yeah.
He doesn't want us to be confused.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now that we've done that, it's okay. We can go slow. We can go as slow as we want to, right? It doesn't matter.
So the
Okay.
And what is
So
Rosh?
so the question is, which one is right?
Which one is it? Or how did the
One
Jews
is right.
Which one is the way of figuring out the first day of the first month according to the
Bible.
Bible?
Yeah.
All right, it says that. It says right here. It's in Exodus 9, verse 31 and 32. This was at the seventh plague. 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh boy. All right. Anyway, the seventh plague is when the hail came down, right? Hail and fire. And what did the hail do? And the flax and the barley was smitten. It was smitten. It smites the flax and barley. And the barley was in the ear. What is in the ear?
It's still
It's Abib. Okay. In the ear is actually Abib. When it's it's becoming ripe. When it starts having like brown streaks on it. And it's starting to ripe. Because what happens to it? It becomes hard and it's no longer soft. So when it's hard and it's hit by hail, what happens to it? It fall off. So the barley dies. But the wheat and the rye is still green. So when it's hit by hail, it just comes back up again and it doesn't die.
Just bend over.
Yeah. So when the barley is ripe for harvest, that's when you count your first day. Because it's going to be the first crescent new moon after the barley harvest, right? Okay, so that's how you go through your months, and then when it's almost time for barley harvest, you wait for the barley harvest. When the barley harvest is ripe, then you start again your first year. So it doesn't go backwards and forwards, It's always according to the barley harvest. It's constant, right? It keeps constant.
The Jewish people always have to plant barley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they
Right.
I mean, is it like really noticeable when it's like ready to harvest?
Well, they're farmers. They're
They should be able to.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's their economy.
Yeah. That.
Yeah, it's not us. Are you gonna go and know? I mean, you're not even a farmer, but they're farmers. They know,
They know.
right?
Just like in Asia, you farm the rice,
Yeah.
and you know when it's starting.
Yeah. All right. So how do you know that this was actually the year? And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So according to thus saith the Lord, the Jewish calendar starts
when the barley.
after on the first moon. I mean the first new moon after the barley
Harvest.
is Abib, right? It's ripe for harvest, right? Right? You get that? Okay.
New one after-
Okay, the new moon
After the barley is ready.
It's the first day of the first month. Then you start counting down. Okay, 14th day from now is what? Passover. Right. Yeah.
Then you
So you get it. Then everything comes into place after that because you establish the first day of the first month.
It's like the season, and when it's done, you start again.
Yeah. So do we know when the season is? Just keep looking at the barley. It's not yet. It's not yet. It's not yet. There you go. Start another year.
That's the first day.
Yeah. And then you look at the moon again, That's the first day. Just look at the barley. And that what? And that's according to thus says the Lord.
Biblical.
That's biblical. All right. Okay. Now the thing about it is, which calendar did Jesus follow to observe the feasts? Did Jesus observe the feast?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, he observed the feast. Which calendar did he use to observe the feast?
Julie.
Obviously the Hebrew calendar,
Hebrew.
right?
They were using.
Yeah, so obviously Jesus kept the Hebrew calendar, right? Now the thing about it is, when you use the Hebrew calendar, it drifts. It drifts.
Yeah.
Every time you have a lunisolar, what's a lunisolar calendar? It's based on the sun and the moon. So the months are according to the moons, right?
And the days are.
And then the year is according to the sun. So one circle around the sun, the earth circle around the sun. So the earth goes, that's one solar year. but the months depends on the rotation of the months. So it goes like this, right? But that's always off. A lunisolar calendar always drifts, right? Because it's going like this. It's off.
You can.
Now they figured out that
How are they going?
19 years, 19 circles around the sun corresponds to 2,355 rotations of the moon, right?
How many?
I'll have it, but anyway, well, we'll have it, all right? That understanding was observed by the Babylonians. So they figured out that every 49 years, you will be in exactly the same spot you were. That you were. And the Babylonians figured this out. The Babylonians figured this out. So, who conquered the Babylonians? Medo-Persians. The Medo-Persians. And then after that, the Greeks. And then so they picked up on this. So the Greeks learned it from the Medo-Persians, who learned it from the Babylonians. So they figured out what we have to do is they named that cycle every 19 years. You will come back to the same spot. The Metonic cycle. Right. And that Metonic cycle was adapted by the Jews about 100 or 200 years before Jesus was born. So the Jews actually had to adjust their years for 40 because every 49 years it comes back to this every 19 years. Every 19 years it comes back to the same spot in the universe. Right? In other words, on the Gregorian calendar, the 10th day of the 7th month is exactly the same as the Gregorian calendar of October 22, 19 years later. 19 years later. Every 19 years, it'll exactly be the same. So that's the Metonic cycle. The Babylonians knew that. Can you imagine that? And then the Jews, what did they do? Well, that's the best. Wow, these Babylonians are really wise. So what they do? They adopted it. They used it even before Jesus.
How did they use?
They used it. So they used it to determine the intercalary days. So if every 19 years you come back to the same spot and you have 12 years, so there's 7 years that you have to put intercalary months.
Is that every 3 years?
Yeah, almost every 3 years. So they by tradition will put it on the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, the 11th, 14th, and the 19th. Right? By tradition. There's 7 years out of that 19 years that they have to put intercalary months. According to the Metonic cycle, so that every 19 years they will come to the same spot and it'll be the same date. Right? And this is Babylonian wisdom, which is actually pretty good. Because it's only off by 2 hours. Every 19 years it's only off by 2 hours. That's very good. Considering they had no huge telescopes, they had nothing.
A good mathematician.
Oh yeah, the Babylonians were really good. Yeah. Babylonians are very good.
By 2 hours?
By 2 hours, every 19 years. Do you know how many years it will take them to figure that out? They said, you know what? We were here 19 years ago. How do they know that? What about 18 years and 364 days? No, it was 19 years ago. We were here, man. 19 years ago. That's incredible. The Babylonians were. Oh yeah. Now, why was it important for the Babylonians to know this?
Your gods.
Because the sun and the moon and the stars are there. They're gods. To know what the will of their God is, they have to know their gods. Right? Because they worship the sun and the moon and the stars. What's the god sun, the sun god of the Babylonians? Shamash. Right.
The thing is, what the lesson we can learn from them.
Oh boy. The lesson that you have to unlearn from them is what you need to know.
I'm saying,
You
they
have
are
to know
meticulous
God,
to
like-
know their God, which is false.
That's true.
How about our God? Do we are meticulous
Yeah, there you
to us
go.
to know our own
Studying their
God?
own God.
Yeah.
That's true.
Right. So all this, what's the use of all of this? What's the use of all of this? Because the pioneers knew all of this. When you read Joshua Himes and they all knew everything about this. They were into this stuff. Because why? This is how they figured out the first day of the first month. And then they were finally correct in understanding the 10th day of the 7th month. That's how they figured out it was October 22, 1844. All right. So when the Jews learned about the Metonic cycle, right? They learned it from the Greeks, and who learned it from the Medo-Persians, who learned it from the Babylonians. Now, when you go to history.com or livius.org, those are the history sites that I always got. Britannica.com, Wikipedia.com. Who did the Medo-Persians learn the Metonic cycle from? They said it was the Babylonian Chaldeans. Wait a minute, isn't Chaldeans Babylonians? So Chaldeans is not just regular Babylonians. Chaldeans is somebody else. Because they learned the Metonic cycle from the Babylonian Chaldeans. So who are the Chaldeans? The astrologers. Those who observed the movement of the stars and knew everything about the stars, right?
Or the wise men.
The wise men.
These are the wise men of Babylonians. Did the Bible mention anything about the Chaldeans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to Daniel 3 verse 8. Somebody read Daniel 3 verse 8. What happened to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they didn't want to bow down to the beast? I mean the image, the golden image. Daniel 3 verse 8.
Wherefore at that time certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews.
I actually wrote wise men here on my Bible.
Oh, it has to be more specific than wise men. It's the astrologers. And what do the astrologers keep? Well, not only the Metonic, but what do they use their first day of the first month, calculate their first day of the first month? The spring equinox, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. Because they have to-
So who is going to accuse you at the time of,
The Chaldeans.
who's going to accuse you, who's going to be your brethren that's going to accuse you to the government that you are bowing down on a Sabbath day?
Who's gonna accuse us?
Yeah.
It's gonna be our own
The
people.
Chaldeans.
Who's that?
Because of the Africans.
According to Daniel 3:8.
The Chaldeans.
They're contemporaries.
The wise.
The wise men. Or the wise virgins.
Those who are equinox keepers are going to accuse the barley harvest keepers. No, the barley harvest keepers. Were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego barley harvest keepers? What about the Chaldeans who accused them?
The spring.
They were the spring equinox keepers, right? This is going to be a big problem.
Uh-oh.
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 So, do you know who your brethren who's going to entrap you at the Sunday law is going to be? It's going to be the spring equinox keepers. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Is that according to the Bible?
Yeah.
Chaldeans came and
Believe in line upon line.
If only they believe in line upon line. This is going to be a big problem because we know a lot of them. And we love them. All right.
Your own count.
Okay, let's compare the barley harvest versus the spring equinox. All right, this is what we've learned so far. The barley harvest is what? It's biblical, right? Exodus, that's the reference right there. Exodus 9 and then Exodus 12. And what does it mean? The ripe barley kernels are destroyed by hail at the 7th plague, right? That's what it means. The first new moon after the barley harvest is the first day of the first month, right? Right? You get that? You see that? Right? The lunisolar calendar adds intercalary months, right? When was the Exodus according to the Gregorian calendar now is going to be 1532 BC, right? If you calculate that, that's going to be 1532. If you put all those dates together, you realize the children of Israel came out of Egypt on 1532 BC. All right, and what does this barley harvest, which pointing towards the Passover? So what does the Passover typify? The Passover is always have to fall on the new moon, right? The 14th day of the new moon is the full moon. Why? Because Jesus, when Jesus died, was it new moon or full moon? It was full moon. Jesus died on a full moon.
He was arrested.
Yeah. When he was arrested, it was full moon. Because it's what? It's the 14th day of the first month. The 14th day of the first month has to be a full moon because it's 14 days after the new moon, right? 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 Do you get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be. And what is that? It's the first feast. And what is that? It is a type for Calvary, right? The type for Jesus' death, right? The Passover. Okay. Now the issue is this. This observance is geographically limited. Can you see that? Because what happens when you go to Europe?
It's gonna be different.
Can you actually know when the barley harvest is in Israel?
No.
So what happens after 70 AD, after Jesus was already nailed on the cross, and the ordinances are nailed on the cross too? Right?
70 or 31?
31. He was nailed on the cross on 31. What happens at 70 AD?
Destroyed.
The Jews were what happened?
They were worshiping.
No, they were taken to Europe, right? They were spread all over the kingdom of Rome, right? They went to Europe. Most of them went to Europe, right? And can they keep the barley harvest in Europe? They can't. Because of that, right? Well, there's no barley, and even if there's barley, it's going to be on a different day than what it is in Jerusalem, because they have to keep the barley harvest as in Jerusalem, right? So what did they keep while they were in Europe? They keep the vernal equinox. Why? Because it's convenient, right? Supposedly convenient. Okay. And vernal equinox is what? It's Babylonian. It's proven. It's in this, this is the cuneiform, probably at the British Museum, right there. And there's multiple other cuneiforms, right, of the Babylonian vernal equinox. What does it say? It divides the sky in half and stands there. That is the star of Marduk. That's the star of, it's called Nibiru. Nibiru is the equinox. It's the star of Marduk. It divides the sky in half, right? When the what is exactly half, right? That's Nibiru. You know, the first new moon after the vernal equinox is the first day of the first month. That's very similar, right? except this is barley harvest, this is vernal equinox. The lunisolar calendar on the metonic cycle, right? Eventually, the Jews incorporated metonic cycle, but when they incorporated metonic cycle, it did not change their Sabbaths, right? It just added another day or something, their days for their to add in between the years makes it the same. So every 19 years, it comes to the same cycle. So what were they celebrating? They were celebrating Akitu, the festival worshiping Marduk, which grieves for death of all things and its rebirth. Is that? Is that?
That's another.
Which one came first, though?
Babylonian.
Does the apostate follow or precede the truth? It always precedes the truth. And what happens? Why is this very convenient? Because the observance is not geographically limited, right? You can keep it anywhere around the world.
I guess it's based, they have their sign.
Yeah, you can use your apps anywhere around the world, right?
For now.
But that's like, but why couldn't God use the Babylon? I'm not saying like it. Why couldn't God use the Babylonian since it's like completely it's like accurate?
Even now it's confusing. Are you going to use the equatorial? How are you going to use the equatorial equinox? That's the true equinox.
Yeah, that is the true equinox.
How are you going to do that?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't use it.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It's just too complicated. And besides, it's Babylonian wisdom. So vernal equinox is what kind of wisdom? Oh boy, we got a problem. Do we have a problem? Some people will have a problem, right? Okay, we'll try. Where are we? We'll get to wrap this up. Okay, we haven't even. Yeah, this is actually pretty interesting. All right, now how did they figure out the first day of the first month? All right, let's see here.
Who? Miller?
The Millerites.
Okay.
They used Ezra 7:9. All right. What day was it that Ezra came out of Babylon? The first day of the first month, right? And then what day did he arrive in Jerusalem? The first day of the fifth month. All right. What about the Jews, the Israelites, when they want to escape Egypt? What day did they leave Egypt? The 15th day of the first month, right? So what about, this first day of the first month and this 15th day of the first month, are they Shabbatons? Yes, they're Shabbatons. Because it's a new moon right here, and there's a festival of the new moon is a Shabbaton, right? It's a Shabbaton. And the 15th day of the first month, that's a Shabbaton because it's the Feast of Unleavened Bread, right? But could the 15th day of the first month here and the first day of this first month be a Shabbat?
Yes.
It can.
But was it the Shabbat at the time of Ezra and the time of Moses? Why?
Because they were moving.
Because of this.
No burden.
What?
Yeah, they can't.
Can you move out of a country and take all your belongings on a Sabbath?
No.
So the first day of the first month cannot be a Shabbat in the time of Ezra and the time of Moses, right? But because you cannot carry your belongings out of a country, your whole household, and go on a trip on a Shabbat,
On the Sabbath day.
right? Okay. This gets to be a problem because some people believe that the first day of the month and the 8th day and the 15th day and the 22nd day is a Shabbat, is your Sabbath. Wait a minute. The first day of the first month and the 15th day of the first month is not a Sabbath. It's not a Shabbat. It's a Shabbaton during that time. Right? Big problems for some. Okay. So there was 3 types of errors that the Millerites did Because how many disappointments did they have? Right. The first one was the Millerite disappointment. The second one was the first disappointment, and then there was the great disappointment. So they were disappointed because of 3 different errors they made. All right. So we got to do this. Let's see. I'm trying to be quick here. Okay. All right. So the first thing that William Miller said that, you know what, 1843, Jesus should come at the end of 1843, at the end of the year 1843. He was using the Gregorian calendar. Right away he said, wait a minute, that can't be right. Because Daniel did not use the Gregorian calendar. So he says, it has to be on a Jewish calendar. So they said, okay, let's ask the Jews. The Jews says it starts on the vernal equinox. So they said, okay, the first day of the first month has to be on the vernal equinox. So they said, okay, Jesus is going to come on March 21, 1844, which is the spring equinox, which is the vernal equinox, right? Did Jesus come then?
No.
Oh, of course, he didn't come then. Why? Because it was the spring equinox. So the calculating based on the spring equinox is incorrect because they were disappointed.
That's 1844.
1844. And it's still going to be incorrect even now.
Yeah.
All right? It was incorrect then, it's going to be incorrect now. Because you can't use the spring equinox. So what did they say? What did they have to go back? And they had to go back and study this. The first day of the first month and first day of the fifth month. And then they figured out that it is Abib. And then they had to use the Karaite reckoning. When they used the Karaite reckoning, they figured out that the first day of the first month is used on the barley harvest. And when they looked at when the barley harvest was, they found out that it was on April 19. So then they said, okay, Jesus is going to come on April 19. But was it correct? Well, the first day of the first month is correct.
It's correct.
But did Jesus come? No, Jesus didn't come. Why? Well, they were disappointed, and it was the first disappointment. You went to the Ascension Rock? Yeah, that was on this day, right? It was on April 19. It's got to be. It had to be on April 19, 1844. Right? So they were disappointed. Why were they disappointed? It's not because of the barley harvest. They got that correct. Why was it? Because Jesus, it was the fullness of the year. Said the 2300 days, it has to be full years.
Oh.
So when they said, oh, you know what? When they went carrying the third angel's message, the third decree of Artaxerxes, they went to Jerusalem. They arrived there on the first day of the fifth month. That decree did not go into effect until the autumn. So they said, oh, you know what? It has to be autumn then. Because it's the fullness of the year principle that they didn't get. So it has to be from autumn to autumn. Right? So this is, well, we're still in March. So it's got to be in autumn. It's got to be somewhere here. All right. Right. Right? Okay. So it was the fullness of here. Here they got the spring equinox error. Here is the fullness of the year error. Because it should be actually in autumn. Right. Right, in the fall. And here they had to tarry. So they had to wait and tarry. When they were here, they realized, oh, you know what? We are in the tarrying time. We are living the 10th virgin parables. And then this is also the end of the 1335. Because the 1335 in Daniel 12 verse 12 says, blessed are those who wait and, let's see, what does it say here? I mean, Daniel 12:12. All right. Daniel 12, blessed are those who come to the 1335. Who come to the 1335. Come means touch. Look at, 1843, the end of this first day, the end of this year touches the beginning of this year, right? 1335 is when this year touches this year. This is the first day of the first month. This year starts right here, according to the Jewish calendar. Not really. So that's why the 1335 touches, and that's when you are blessed, when you start tarrying right there.
So it ends at the first day.
That's right, the first day of the first month. Right. Okay. All right. So they realized they were in the tarrying time. And then in the first day of the fifth month, it turns out that it falls exactly on August 15th, because that's when Samuel Snow delivered the message at the Exeter camp, right? It was his second lecture, right? That he delivered, and figured out that this is the first day of the fifth month, and that was the midnight cry. So this is the midnight cry right here, right?
That's when he preached about October 22.
Right. That's when they preached about October 22. And this is when they realized that it was the 10th day of the 7th month. They realized the 10th day of the 7th month is October 22, because they got the first day of the first month correct, and then only after the hand of God was removed from the error that they had, that they realized that it was actually October 22.
So they thought it was when they thought it was the first day.
They initially thought it was the first day of the first month. But then it says no, the hand of God was still covering an understanding. When the hand of God was revealed, it says, you know what? It has to be the fullness of the year. It's from autumn to autumn.
So when they arrived.
So when they arrived in the decree did not go into full effect until the Day of Atonement. Why? Because that was the establishment of the sanctuary, right? The establishment of the sanctuary, right? The 10th day of the 7th month. Okay, so we're going to stop right here. Wow, that's a lot of information. My mouth is dry now.
But it's really basic.
It is very basic.
We have to know this.
You have to know this to be able to defend your faith. Now, if there comes any winds of doctrine, it doesn't matter what it is. You have to know what the truth is first.
Right.
All right? You can't say, okay, that is wrong based on, Wait a minute. You have to know what the truth is. So this is why we need to know what the truth is first. All right? And that is the more sure of the prophecy. Okay, let me put my what here so we can
How did they
finish.
understand the 10th day of the 7th month? How did they know it was Passover?
The 10th day of the Day of Atonement, you mean? Because the Day of Atonement is when Jesus cleansed the temple, and that's where the Day of Atonement, when the high priest goes in, and he actually cleans the temple from all the sins, right? He has to lay all the sins on that goat, and that goat is sent out, so he cleanses the sanctuary.
And they originally
thought the sanctuary was the earth. When they said, oh, you know what? It's the Day of Atonement. That happens on the fall. That's why the knowledge of the feast is very important. They realized that the cleansing of the sanctuary is the Day of Atonement.
But
And when is
understand that
after?
They understood that
after here. They thought it was the first day of the first month. After here, then they start understanding. It was fully understood here.
Yeah.
Okay.
At 8:15.
So this is when they realize it's the 10th day of the 7th month, because Jesus, the high priest, cleanses the sanctuary, and he puts all those sins on the goat and sends it to the wilderness, right? So that's when they're understanding it.
How
Okay.
do they know the decree valid started in October?
Yeah. There's I've read several of them study it, because they had to build they still had, I think it's something to do with I don't know it, I can't quote it right offhand, But the Millerites, there's something that they had to clean up first before they can start the sanctuary service. Yeah, it was not completely ready yet. Yeah, if you read you can read it when you go back to Joshua Himes and William Miller.
Well, and Samuel Snow was really the one who,
Samuel Snow figured it
the
out.
one who studied that.
Samuel Snow. All right.
Those are what really that, yeah.
So wait a minute. So did we resolve when midnight is? Not yet.
Not yet.
With with all that, we haven't really resolved which midnight is, because midnight is not
Well, did they
a.
know what midnight? Did they reckon what midnight was?
Samuel Snow will tell you. Yeah, the midnight. He will know when the
You didn't
midnight.
include it on yours.
I haven't included that because it's we got to do it. We'll go.
Another study.
Yeah, we'll continue. So we haven't resolved yet when midnight is, but we have resolved how they figured out October 22.
That's January 14th, right? That whole thing.
2300 is until
October 22.
October 22, because the 2300 ends right there, but the first day of the first month is right there. Just to come to this understanding took a lot of study, right? Yeah, which most of us don't. We didn't know this before. Okay, all right. So,
You know, the big church now, they do.
all right. With that,
I'm sorry.
we'll continue in 2 more weeks because next week we will not be here.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.